A group of Hideaway Hills members were authorized and organized by the board to inform members about Hideaway Hills history, governance, committees, and communications. We understand that when many of you first joined HAH, you might not have quite understood the purpose of the Board of Trustees, the Management Committee, the General Manager, and how they all fit together and who does what. Many of you might not be aware of the difference between the Code of Regulations, deed restrictions, and club rules. What takes a membership vote and what doesn't. The purpose of this video is to explain how the HAH governance is organized. We've sometimes heard people refer to us as a HOA, but that's not exactly right. Or is it? Hideaway Hills is a 501c7 corporation, which means we are classified by the IRS as a social and recreational club. That means we have to provide an opportunity for personal and social contact, membership has to be limited, and it has to be supported by member fees, dues, and assessments. As a planned committee under Ohio law, there are certain restrictions and rules we have to abide by. Now, you will hear from a former board president and a member of the management committee to explain how it all works. As a reminder, a very important member vote happens every August at our annual meeting when we elect our board of trustees. 3 members' terms expire and 3 new trustees are elected. So make sure your voice is heard by casting your vote.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Cabot Ray. I've been a member here at Hideaway Hills since 2010, and today with me, speaking of longtime investors personally and professionally in this place, are 2 of the legends. Bucky Childers over here on my right and Dan Donovan, who have both been involved with several parts of governance, and that's what we're going to talk about here at Hideaway Hills. On that subject though, let's talk a little bit more about this governance aspect, because we do have a general manager, we have a board of directors, we have the management committee, which is a very important committee. We've got 19 or 20 standing committees under those. Can you lay out who represents what area, who's in charge of what?
Well, the Board of Trustees is the ultimate authority, and they control the monies certainly, and policy, and long-term direction. Mm-hmm. The Management Committee runs the day-to-day operations of Hideaway Hills, and they accomplish that through the general manager. Also, the Management Committee is responsible for the safety, security aspects of living in Hideaway Hills.
Okay, and now the Board of Trustees, there are I think 9 of them, right? And and they are elected. 3
are elected each year and 3 go off every year.
And it's strictly it's a vote count among the membership, right?
Yes. Okay. The highest vote getters get the office.
Okay, and yes, they do stagger the 3-year terms, right. So that every year there's a new influx of at least 3 people. So we've talked about the Board of Trustees, we've talked about Management Committee. Now let's talk about the General Manager. That is a salaried position here, but what's his responsibility? Hers?
That position is responsible for all aspects of the day-to-day operations of Hideaway Hills. That's the golf course, that's food service, that's the security force. They run the day-to-day operations on a constant basis.
Yes, they do. And Jeff Harper is currently our general manager here, and he's doing a great job. It's a big job, but again, he has an office staff of 2 people, and they really are kind of at the center of a lot of what goes on here. So those are the 3, I guess the 3 branches of government. Of course, as I mentioned, there are probably 19 committees, everything from golf to social to the pool to the chapel, that also are involved and also can use your service or your time if you decide you want to get involved with those. And they're highly paid for this job, by the way.
Yes,
highly
it's
paid.
Highly paid.
It's volunteer, and these people really give a lot of hours to getting these things done.
The group who produced our informational video series did a rough calculation of HAH volunteer hours. It's hard because some work ebbs and flows, and people don't always remember time they spend doing things like answering member questions, researching, and responding to phone calls and emails. Here's what we found. We asked the board, 9 people, to calculate how many hours they devote per year, and it came to around 3,000 hours. Then we looked at data for comparable jobs in Southern Ohio non-metro areas. At an hourly rate for management and community services managers, that comes to $128,550 a year. Next, the management committee. 5 people, not including the GM, estimated it puts in about 96 hours per month. That adds another $50,000. Committee chairs donate somewhere between 4 and 40 hours of time per month. It varies a lot by season, project, or committee, sometimes more and sometimes less. We did a rough average of 20 hours per month, so about 2.5 days a month for committee chairs. We looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports for the average hourly wage for meeting and event planners in Ohio. If we had to outsource the services our 23 committee chairs provide, it would cost us in the neighborhood of $165,000 a year. And that's just the committee chairs. Add in maybe 100 committee members' time, and you'd get to a grand total of $265,000 a year. And that doesn't count non-committee member volunteer hours. Everything combined, we get to $443,000 in volunteer time, which is probably a significant underestimate. If we had to hire employees to do the work, we'd have to add in about 30% for benefits, which brings us to well over $500,000 a year in donated time. That's a staggering number, and our guess is the actual number is much higher. So, hats off and a huge HAH thank you to all of our volunteers. We literally couldn't do it without you.
Tell me, during your time on management committee, give me an example of a project or something that you folks had to take care of.
Oh, I had a very interesting 2-year tender where we didn't have any money. As we all know, we've just gone through an assessment increase, but for 3 years in a row, we were working to convince the membership that we needed an assessment increase to continue operating the whole facility. And that's the whole 17 or 1,600 acres and all that's within it. But the management team that I worked with was really looking at how to cut our costs. And unfortunately, we had to make the tough decision as a part of that committee to close the lodge for a year or better. So that was a lot of the work that we put in. Some of the positive things that we might have done were expanding canoe storage at 3 locations on all of our lakes. We doubled, tripled the storage, and we could still probably use more. But it's just the growing nature of our community, and it's rewarding, but it is challenging.
It's a commitment. It is
there's a lot of hours. I was also a member of the Food Service Committee while I was on that, and I would guess, there were weeks I was putting in 15 hours, and I don't live here full time.
Right.
I live up in Columbus and would drive down for meetings. So it can be time consuming.
Well, it is. You need to be committed for sure, and I know you two have been over the years. So when I first came here in 2010, I was a little confused with the hierarchy of governance in the board of trustees, and then the management committee, and then the general manager, and how they all interrelated. Can you explain a little bit of that, Bucky?
The hierarchy of the controlling documents, the one highest is the deed restrictions. And it's a document that sets forth the covenants that goes along with your property, and it takes 100% of the membership to initiate a change in that document. So you can probably pretty much pass that up, because to get 100% of...
Not going to happen, probably.
The next in the hierarchy would be the Code of Regulations. The Code of Regulations is a 20-page document that sets forth the do's and don'ts, and speaks to a whole bunch of different issues. And the code takes 66 2/3% of the voting membership to initiate a change in that document.
An example of that would be when we choose to try to raise the amenity fee to try to stay up with cost of living. That has to be passed by 2/3. Right?
Yeah, 66 and 2/3. The last of the controlling documents would be the general rules and regulations. They are changed exclusively by the Board of Trustees by a majority of vote. Another little known controlling document is the new member agreement that each and every one of us signed when we became a member or applied to become a member for Hideaway Hills. It basically states we will abide by all existing rules and regulations that existed at that time, plus any that may be developed in the future. I would ask that every member go back and pull that document from your closing documents and reread it, because it gives you a good feel of what your obligations are as being a member of Hideaway Hills.
Very good, and I agree with that. And I think even some of us who, I got here in 2010, but I need to go back and review some of that because it is important that you have an idea. Again, this place has changed so much since the 60s and 70s, and as we respectfully try to enjoy our lives together as a community, it's good to have that knowledge back in the back of your mind about things and where where your rights are in all of that.
One place you can go to get all the documents that we've talked about here today is our website, which is www.hideawayhillsclub.com. It's got a copy of every single document pertinent to the operation and being a member of Hideaway Hills. So I encourage everybody to go out, print off a copy, and go over them. Read our documents. It is information that all our membership should know.
Absolutely, that website is a great place to go. It is probably the best place to go to get your information.
I also would recommend one thing that we have other Facebook applications that people can access. And one thing I would also recommend is call the office with your questions. The office is very capable, and if they don't know the answer to your specific question, they'll find out and get back to you. That is a very good way, instead of getting a question asked on Facebook and sometimes getting it right and sometimes getting it wrong. And if you want the right answer, get it from the office.
Thanks to you both. Bucky, thank you, Dan. Covered a fair amount of material there, but again, that website that Bucky mentioned, www.hideawayhillsclub.com, is probably the bottom line where you can go again to kind of go through what we've been talking about. Thank you so much for being with us.